Hey everybody, welcome to At Home with Gigi. I'm Gwen. Thanks so much for stopping by. Today's video is part of another collaboration. It is the Talented Creators collaboration that I'm so happy to be a part of, and I'll tell y'all more about that in just a bit. Y'all know how it goes. But today's video is going to be reviving failed projects, and we're all going to be sharing that with you. So you're going to get some great inspiration. So pull out your failed DIYs and let's get started. So for this first failed DIY that we're going to be remaking, as you can see, I have decoupaged a napkin on top of this little canvas box, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, did not work. I don't know where I was going with that. So here I am trying to remove it. And as you can see, it is a hot mess. I had to use a sponge, everything you can think of to remove all the napkin. And I kind of messed up my crackle paint effect. So we're going to start by fixing that. As you can see, some of the white paint has rubbed off and it just doesn't look very good. So how we're going to fix this, we're going to go in and we're going to do the crackle paint technique again. We're going to start by adding a very generous amount of school glue. I'm using Elmer's, but it's just what I happen to have on hand. And as you can see, I'm adding a very generous amount to the top of this canvas. And then I'm just going to go in and then just smooth that out. You want your layer to be as smooth and even as possible. After you get your glue smoothed out, you can do one of two things. You can go straight in with your paint, or you can wait about 30 to 45 minutes. And lately that's been my preference, but today I'm going to go straight in with the paint, and I'm using Rust-Oleum white linen. I'm loading up my brush on one side. I don't want too much, but I want enough where I can make one complete stroke down the canvas, because the more you go back and forth over your glue and you mix that glue and paint together, it will lessen your crackle effect. So you can go over it a couple of times, but I just wouldn't recommend going over it too many times. Now, once you've added the paint, you will want to set this aside and let it dry for about 24 to 48 hours. Isn't this gorgeous? I love this crackle effect. I hate that I lost the blue under there, but I think it's beautiful. But I did go around the edges and touch it up with some Waverly Peacock. So we're going to be Mod Podging or decoupaging this beautiful napkin to the front of our canvas, and I've just used the water method to remove the excess napkin. I remembered this time, and that's just using a little tiny paintbrush and water. And I like that effect that it gives because it gives the uneven edges, and it just helps it to blend in with your surface better. Sometimes I can way overdo it on the Mod Podge, but in this instance I really don't mind so much, because too much Mod Podge can cause wrinkling and bubbling. I don't want any bubbling, but I don't mind the wrinkling because it will just blend in with the crackle effect that I have going on with the paint. And then I'm just going to line my napkin up as best I can. And then I'm just going to use this plastic wrap and then just smooth out my napkin. Please excuse the crazy arm angle. I'm not sure what I've got going on here. But I'm just going to continue to add a little bit of Mod Podge as I'm going along, or maybe a lot of Mod Podge. And then just continue to smooth out my napkin. I'm going to go ahead and add another layer of Mod Podge on top of the napkin and just smooth that out, just to make sure the napkin is completely sealed in before I move on to the next step. Once the Mod Podge is completely dry, I'm just going to use a very fine grit sandpaper and just go around and remove any excess napkin. We're going to be creating a topiary using these 3 different size pumpkins, and all of these came from the Dollar Tree, but I've had them in my stash for quite some time. The colors that I'm going to use for the pumpkins will be plaster, pool, and pumpkin, and all of them are from Waverly Chalk Paint. So I want them to mimic or resemble the pumpkins that are in my napkin. This video is part of the Talented Creators collaboration, and our hosts are DIYwithAurea, One Way Designs 238, Loli D's Creations, and the co-host for this month It's Gazelle Creative Studios and myself. They so kindly asked me to be a part of it this month, and I truly appreciate that. Thank y'all so much. I will have everyone's channels along with the playlist down in the description box, but I will also have the playlist pinned in that top comment for your convenience. So thank y'all for being here. If you're here from the playlist, if you're from my channel, please make sure you go check out everybody's videos. You will get so inspired and have so much fun watching us fix our failed projects and then just reinvent them and recreate them. So here's a fail within the fail video. I should have peeled that outer part off of the large pumpkin, the plastic part, because my paint just completely cracked and started peeling off. So what I did, I just used a pair of tweezers, just got in there, and then you'll see I just kind of peeled it like an orange and just peeled off that outer shell, and then I just went back and gave it 2 more coats of the Waverly chalk paint and plaster. I wanted to give a little bit of definition to my pumpkin, so for the blue one I just mixed together a little bit of gray and white acrylic paint, and as you can see I'm just very lightly dry brushing in between each of the segments. And then for the orange pumpkin I just mixed together the color pumpkin and a little bit of nutmeg brown and just very lightly brushed in between each of the segments on that one as well. For the stem, I'm just literally using a small stick from my yard, and I'm just going to pop it down in there. I will go back later and hot glue that in there because it didn't want to stay. And as you can see, the pumpkins have already been cut in half, and I lost that footage along with some others somewhere along the way, so apologies for that. I am really loving how this remake is coming together. If I had it to do over, I'd probably leave the border on the napkin, so the pumpkins on the napkin would be higher on the canvas, but oh well, what you gonna do? I think it's really super cute so far. And I'm just gonna go in with some moss from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just gonna fill in any little gaps or spaces between the canvas and the pumpkin and between each pumpkin. I bumped the stem while I was adding the moss, so I did go back in and add a little bit of hot glue just to make sure it's going to stay in place. And then because I didn't have any leaves that were really tiny enough to go around the stem, and I thought it looked a little plain, so I took a piece of pitberry and I'm just going to snip that off and wrap it around the little tool that I use when I hot glue just to give it that curly look. And then I'm just going to wrap it around the stem. Little sunflowers came off those little trucks that you can pick up during the fall from the Dollar Tree, and I just pulled them off, and I'm just hot gluing them along the side, and I'm going to add in just a few more little embellishment like this little acorn, and again things that I picked up last year that I had left over. And as you can see, this is where I lost more footage. The little Hello Autumn sign is also from the Dollar Tree that you get in those 6-pack of wooden words. And I just used a little bit of Waverly's Ocean on a baby wipe and just went over it a couple of times until I got the color that I was looking for, and then I just hot glued it onto the front of the canvas. And I'm so sorry that I lost all this footage. But I just love how this is coming together. I think it is just so adorable. You have to let me know what you think. So what do y'all think? Was it worth saving? With a little bit of time and a little bit of creativity, you can save something that was meant for the trash, because that's exactly what I was about to do. I was just going to throw it out. And then Aurea said she was going to do this collaboration. I'm like, you know what? I think I can save this canvas. I'm going to do something with it. And I'm so glad that I did. I love my little 3D topiary. And y'all got to tell me what you think. Was it worth saving? So a little backstory on our next failed redo. This is one of those carvable white pumpkins from Michael's, and I picked this up last year. And I decided I was going to do the crackle effect on this. Huge big fail. I don't know exactly what I did wrong, but I used school glue and I used latex paint. That could have been it. I picked up this little sample from my local Lowe's and I love the color, but it just did not love this pumpkin. And as you can see, I also cut the top of the pumpkin out. Y'all, I have no idea where I was going with this. Not a clue. It did not work. It was at the end of the fall season, so I just put it up and didn't know what to do with it. But I'd spent all that money on this pumpkin, didn't want to throw it out. But I can't wait to show y'all how I remake this, and I hope you love it as much as I do. I had the honey go in and just cut out the very center of the pumpkin ring, stem ring, and then I'm going to go and glue that part back in because I'm going to cover this pumpkin in fabric and I need a smaller hole in the top. And I'm just using my favorite Gorilla Gel glue in this little pen. So I'll let the pumpkin set and dry for several hours before I move on to the next step. And y'all, isn't this fabric just beautiful? It came from Amazon and I bought it a while ago for another project. Never got around to using it, so I decided it would be the perfect thing for this project. And I am going to have to trim it down some because it's just way too much fabric. And I'm just starting by gathering it up and then just poking the edges down inside the pumpkin, and the hole is still a little bit big for what I'm doing, but I'm just holding it in place there with my other hand and just continuing to push the fabric down inside, just making sure I don't have any raw edges sticking out until it gets, as you can see here, it's pretty full of fabric. And I'm just using the little end of my spatula that I use for hot glue, and then just using that to push it down in there. Now when I get to this stage right here, I've cut a little too much off, so I did have to use just a touch of hot glue to keep it down in there and keep it in place. So I thought with this beautiful fabric we needed an equally beautiful stem to go on the top, so we're going to make one. And I'm using air dry clay from Crayola, and I have a big tub of it, and I've just got a chunk, and as you can see, I'm just rolling it out until I get the length that I'm looking for. And then I'm just going to continue to roll it back and forth until I get it really thin on one end, because I want it to kind of curve over. It didn't get as much curvature as I wanted because it started to break off because I got it a little too thin. And then I'm just gently tapping it against the palm of my hand. I even tapped it against the table, and I'm just keeping on pressing and pinching and just working my way around the base until I get it to the size that I need. And I want it to be fairly large so it will sit flat on top of the pumpkin. Once I get the base to the size that I want, I'm just going to go around the base and just very gently pinch the clay between my fingers and just create some little pleats. I'm going to use the end of my little tool and go in and just very gently drag it along the base and the stem, and just to create some texture and dimension. To help it dry in the position that I want it to stay in, I'm just using this pencil holder. And as you can see, I've turned it upside down just using a piece of wax paper, and I just let it sit there, and it really took about 3 to 4 days, guys, for this to completely dry. So once the stem had dried, I decided that I wanted to paint it silver. I did not have any silver paint on hand, so I decided to create my own. So I'm using some metallic pearl white from Bogart, and then as you can see, I'm just mixing in a tiny bit of jet black and real blue from Apple Barrel. And I'm just mixing a teeny bit in a little bit at a time until I'm getting the color that I'm looking for. And I really think the silver turned out very pretty. You'll have to tell me what you think. Now to apply the paint, I just tore a cheap makeup sponge from the Dollar Tree in half, and I'm just dabbing it, as you can see, all over the stem, and making sure I get into all those little nooks and crevices that I created with that little tool. Once the paint was dry, I'm going to use a combination of my favorite Gorilla Gel glue and then just a tiny bit of hot glue to attach the stem to the top of the pumpkin. So unfortunately, I got a little careless, and yep, you guessed it, I broke the base of my pumpkin stem. I was so bummed and upset. I was just like, no, 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 no. But I just removed the part that broke off because I wasn't even going to bother trying to glue it back on, and just said, well, you know what, we're going to make this the back of the pumpkin and cover it up with some flowers and just roll on with it. And sometimes that's what you have to do. I'm going to use a variety of spring flowers, and my inspiration came from Pinterest. They have some of the most beautiful pumpkins. Unfortunately, I only had the one ranunculus, so I decided to make that my focal point, and I think it is so beautiful. And aren't these roses so lifelike? These come from Walmart, and my local Walmart has had them for the last 2 summers, and every time I'm in there, I will pick a couple of stems up. It almost broke my heart to cut these down because they were so pretty. I love to just pop them in a vase and set them on my table. And the beauty of this project, guys, is you can use any color fabric, any flowers, whatever you might have on hand. And yes, I just popped that white rose right over that broken stem and just kept on rolling. I'm just going to pop these little silvery gray pumpkins in, and y'all, I just recently found these at my Dollar Tree, and they're finally getting some fall stuff, and I thought they were just perfect to go with my silver stem. Tell me what y'all think. So I wanted to add just a little more glam to the pumpkin, so we're going to add some pearls. And because these small ones are so tiny, I'm just having to use a regular needle and thread. And to keep the pearls from sliding off the end, I just added a tiny bit of hot glue there, and it's a perfect stopper for them. And then you can just trim off the excess, and it keeps your pearls in place. I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue to attach the pearls, and then just make sure you snip off any strings that might be hanging down. I did go back in and add just a little more greenery and just little bits and pieces of this little pink flower that I cannot for the life of me remember what it is. And as I was looking at it, I'm like, you know what, this needs a little more glam, so I'm just going to pop in a couple of these really large pearls, and these came from Amazon. I'll link them down below. And I thought it was just the perfect finishing touch. As you can see, I did make one more change. I just wasn't fond of this single strand of pearls hanging down, so I just snipped it off and created 2, and just went through the exact same process, just hot glued them up under the flower. That covered up all your work, and I think it looks much better. But y'all tell me, which do you prefer, the single strand or the double strand of pearls? Thank y'all so much for stopping by. I truly appreciate it. Don't forget about the playlist down in the description box in that first comment. Go and check out all these other wonderful YouTubers. I promise you, you will get some great inspiration on how to bring back to life maybe a failed DIY. I hope you've enjoyed what I have shown you today. Drop me a comment down below and let me know. I'll see you next time. Bye.